I'm very happy to be here with you, Zach. You have been watching a show that it took a little while, but you finally got me to watch it. And
Yes.
I think Katie also wants to watch it, so
that'd
I'm
be
going to
so
rewatch it
nice.
next week, I think.
Yeah, I've already rewatched it with my wife. So.
Yeah. Tell me about Toradora.
Yep, Toradora.
Yeah, let's keep the spoilers out. I've got like 3 or 4 episodes left.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's hear about Toradora.
So this is just something that's become really special to me in an extremely short amount of time. In fact, my wife and I finished watching it together, and we had a moment, man, and it was really it's something like I sat down and journaled about it. Like that's how important it was. It's not necessarily a show that will do that for even most people. I think. I think it just hit me at just the right time. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? So yeah, Toradora is essentially just something I would never have watched, and that's actually the reason I picked it up to give it a try. Was it's just a high school romance slice of life anime show. But calling it that's really a disservice, I think. It's got extremely subtle character work, really interesting moments. It has this just really mature and interesting perspective on what love is and what love looks like. Without spoilers, there are just little moments throughout the show where, a character will say something that, calls back to what they've been building this whole time, not only in the character, but in terms of the themes of the show. Food. Every single time that a character's talking about food, they're talking about something so much more. It's really, I don't know, it just really spoke to me in a lot of ways. And it's fun. It's funny, and the characters, what's cool is the characters, not all of them do a bunch of changing necessarily, but as the show progresses, it's not like the typical, they have backstory, now they have something meaningful about them. It's, that's why they think that way. Oh, that's why they act that way. Oh, wow, they're behaving that way, but they actually think this. You know what I mean? And they start to layer and structure these characters really elegantly and not without, they don't shove it down your throat. A lot of times you'll pick up on something that's happening in a character 10 episodes before they actually reveal it, So it's just, it's subtle. It's good character work. But again, because of the themes of the show and because of how it addresses them and talks about them, it was just really special to me at this time in my life. And it really made me start thinking about those kinds of ideas again. And it was really special for me and my wife.
Yeah, that's good to hear, man. I'm happy you're branching out. It's also totally out of my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
I really don't know. I mean, other than your recommendation, I had no other reason for watching this. But I absolutely love it.
I'm so glad to hear that,
I love
man.
the two main characters and their sort of discovery of each other and themselves. Yeah. And, we had this conversation talking about one of the games we'll talk about later. But which I'm excited to talk about. Sort of skip it's a high school love. It's a high school romance show. But the two characters sort of skip that brand of high school love and move right on to something that's maybe a little more tangible. Because
serving each other.
Exactly.
Yes.
Something that's going to last and that's going to weather really hard times.
While having that mushy gushy with someone totally different.
Yeah. So I really like that dynamic a lot.
I'm excited for you to watch because the last couple was the nail in the coffin for I love this because it ends all those ideas and themes really well, and even the character stuff his Ryuji's mom in the last 3 episodes became one of my favorite characters in the whole show.
Really interesting.
Yeah. She just and she doesn't change. There's no great revelatory moment for her or anything. It's just this. All of a sudden, she's one of my favorites.
Really? Huh.
Yeah. So
okay.
I like how the show does that.
Cool.
And they like their bird.
It's totally impaired. It's mentally handicapped bird.
It's really sad in a lot of ways. Just it's a good addition. But man, that does my heart in saying good that you liked it a lot.
Yeah. I'm really excited to finish it and rewatch it with Katie. And you've been playing something this week.
Yeah, man.
I've been preaching about for a little while. I can't get anybody to play it. No one's ever going to play it.
I'm here for you. We share games.
We do share games. Which, by the way, welcome to the Unpatched Gaming Podcast, where we share games.
We do share them.
I am one of your hosts, Tyler.
And I am Zack.
Yes, and I shared a game with Zack this week. We shared many games, but one that's sort of, not on the schedule. I'd like to hear your thoughts on Sayonara Wild Hearts.
Yeah, and I think it's so funny because he showed me the ending song to this game, like the one they close it out with, before we were just talking on the back porch. We had a pipe, just a little bit of whiskey, having a good time, and he brings up the song, and it was really powerful, really well written. I was like, man, that's really good. And I was in the middle of Toradora at the time, like I was finishing it up. And because of kind of the nature of Sayonara, and it's the way that it's framed in terms of the post breakup of this, probably senior, maybe college age girl. It was a little vague on purpose, but because of her placement in there and because of the journey they take her on, it really again resonated with me. It was really good, so I'm glad you recommended it to me. It's a beautiful little physical copy.
Oh yeah,
too.
Yeah, for sure. And if the
was it
Switch
limited run?
cases,
Who did it?
That was I Am 8-Bit.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, if the Switch cases weren't so uniform, I'd flip it around because the reverse cover art is so nice.
Really, I should have paid a little closer attention.
Yeah, it's got a white spine though. It's
okay.
like one continuous piece of art. Now, I mean, it does say that the it's got like the title and the publisher on there, but it's not red.
That's well, let me just I don't want to spend too much time on this. We got a lot to talk about, obviously, but it's I think I don't want to overuse this word because I drop this word so often talking about Colossus, but it's special.
Yeah,
it's special. And
it
it's
is
short. It took me an hour to beat the whole game.
Really? I think it took me a little longer. I don't know why. Maybe I went back and played.
Maybe I just kind of got lost in it.
Okay.
But it was definitely not much more than an hour.
Yeah, I mean it is one album and maybe some extra songs. So let's describe
it's got little interludes too and stuff. But go ahead. You shoot.
It's branded as a pop album video game or a video game pop album laser show. It's really bizarre. It is, first of all, a pop album. There are, like 9 or 10 original tracks made for this game, and it's sort of a rhythm game, and you're playing as the main character. I forget her name. Is her name ever shared?
Is it stated? I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe it's not. And so kind of think of Scott Pilgrim. She's
that's fair.
Revisiting all of her exes because she's really going through this tumultuous time in her life, and going back to what I said earlier about that sort of high school love or something that's a little more ephemeral, something that isn't going to weather the storm. And obviously with these like 10 exes, those relationships did not weather any storms. So she's sort of going through this time in her life. She wants to grow up, and she's looking for something that's a little more real. And so every track is you fighting off the memories of these exes that are holding you back. And the last, not the last song, like when the credits roll, which just gets me every time. I've listened to it in the car a couple times, and I just lose it, man. It's so good. That second verse is such a powerful line.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, okay.
It's very good. But the last part of the game where it's basically a boss rush, but you take on the image of all of your exes because they've affected your life, and they've sort of formed you into this person that you don't really recognize anymore. And but you're the one who allowed yourself to do that. So after doing away with all of the memories of your exes that are holding you back, now you have to do away with the part of yourself that is allowing that to happen. And so you take on the form of all of your exes, and you have to fight yourself. And it's cheesy, you kill yourself with love.
Of course,
you like give yourself a kiss on the cheek or something.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. It's great. It's really magical.
And you ride a dragon into the sunset.
Yeah, you ride a dragon, and it's narrated by Queen Latifah. That's cool.
Yeah. It's a winner.
Yeah, it's really fun. I'm happy you enjoyed it. But that's not what we're here to talk about.
It's not, unfortunately,
this week.
Sometimes.
Unfortunately, I mean that was a good little discussion.
Oh, yeah, maybe we'll talk. About
It's like $12 if you like rhythm games. If you like,
and it's like interesting rhythm. Like you fight a boss that's like a split kind of personality. It's two people, and each one controls a different universe, quote unquote. It's the same track. Like you're moving across the same track, but one will flip it, and there will be obstacles and little objectives and points and values and stuff you can pick up, and they'll snap, and it'll switch the plane, and you have to like remember what was on the last one so you can move and avoid whatever's coming. It's really interesting and innovative in a lot of places.
The one that has really stuck with me
is the car. And it's the shortest one, and the whole time I'm like, why can't I just drive this car again? The car mechanics are so... You're, like, drifting across this, like, empty Nevada desert, and you just feel like Steve McQueen in Bullet, and it's fantastic.
Okay. There's a little mobile game, an Infinite Runner, called Neon Drift, I think? Maybe Neon Runner? It doesn't matter. It's basically just a car chase from Blade Runner, and it's an Infinite Runner. Okay, you're swiping left and right. Maybe you're like pressing on the brake and drifting around this corner because there's a bunch of thugs that have put up some sort of blockade. But the music just really, it's bumping, dude. It's nice. That soundtrack slaps, as it were.
Oh wow, you are so hip.
Yeah, I really am. And it's just really awesome to look at. And if you like Infinite Runners, I haven't played one in a long time, but that one is really solid. I think it's called Neon Drift. What stuck out most to me was the VR one.
Oh, that was interesting. Yeah.
I honestly cannot remember why. I've just never forgotten it. I didn't go back and play it with you. So I'd like to revisit and figure out what exactly it was that made it stick in my head. But I feel like the music and what was happening on screen, not what was happening on screen, but the way you were playing that sort of bullet hell shooter,
that was really
was really lining up in a way that made sense. It's one of those things that I often basically preach about, just when mechanics line up with the narrative, and it's trying to tell that narrative or drive those emotions home through your actions. I remember it doing that. I can't say what specifically it was doing though. But again, that's not why we are here. We're here to explore.
Oh, are
Zach,
we?
We're here to explore a genre that neither of
exploring?
Us. We're exploring buildings, office buildings, maybe small sections of forest, just abandoned
small
houses.
Sections of forest, is that what you'd call it?
Yeah. I don't think that's too big of a world.
No, it's.
We're talking about walking sims.
We are
Now, that might be a derogatory term.
I don't think it is anymore.
I feel like it's been redeemed. If it is, I apologize. We do not mean to demean these games. That's what we're going to call them, though, for now, walking sims. Neither of us have really dove too deep into this genre as a whole. I've played 3 or 4 of these games. I played 2 that are on this list, and last week we played What Remains of Edith Finch. And that was my 3rd time playing Edith Finch. So I've sort of dabbled in the genre, but never dove head in. So we're going to be exploring from Dear Esther to the current big budget walking sim, the Suicide of Rachel Foster. Yes, I always say Rachel Carter. I've been saying that and sending it to you because I also played the Vanishing of Ethan Carter.
Just conflate them.
Yes. So we're gonna play a bunch of the big name titles in that genre, and just talk about it as a whole. So Zach, I have been wanting to play Dear Esther. No, I wanted to play Dear Esther very badly when it came out, and for some reason did not, and then really became disinterested in a big way. Because I sort of shifted through this really pretentious time in high school to that's not a game. I don't want to play that. That's pretentious. Which is an odd transition, but that's not the case anymore. That I've sort of found a very comfortable middle ground, and it is doing interesting things. And I'd like to know your thoughts on Dear Esther.
So this is the first one I played after Edith Finch.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, are all these games going to be about wrestling with the idea of death? Because immediately after Edith Finch, a whole game about someone trying to make death meaningful is this guy trying to give meaning to this person's death. Right away. Again, that being said, it did it a really interesting way. I liked, seeing the ghosts as you traverse this empty little island, And for me, I think what really hit it home is the writing. Very kind of romantic period of literature.
Yeah, I'm a big dummy. That was way over my head.
Yeah, the romantic period of literature stuff that it was doing. Lots of kind of what's the right word for it? Kind of pastoral is what kind of a genre that it evoked in a lot of ways. And I know that's a little bit, my literature stuff talking, but it really is. Like, it's not just me trying to, like, find something to talk about in that way. Like, it draws from that stuff and those ideas and the idea of the sublime and that kind of stuff. It pulls from that, and it creates this really interesting little story. Unlike the other games we played, I didn't keep walking forward in this one to kind of uncover what's going on, to uncover, what put the pieces together as much. I walked through this one just because I wanted to listen to the next part. I wanted to hear how he was going to say or process this next thing that he's thinking about.
And that's actually, I don't know how true this is, but we mentioned we were talking about the deepest dive from MinMax on Edith Finch. Yeah. And someone was talking about how Dear Esther has like pseudo randomized narrative. Like, those words are not totally scripted.
Interesting.
So I think based on what you're exploring first, certain things will be pieced together, and based on what is already in that line of text that you have discovered, which, I mean, it's not a line of text on the screen, but whatever. What you have already discovered determines what you're able to, or what you hear next. So it's not a totally straight narrative. It is a little randomized. So I found that pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Even with that, I thought it was pieced together very well.
Yeah, and like the pacing, like what you end up at next. You're interested in the environments, sure. But again, for me, it was just that simple narrative unfolding, and you get a good idea of who these characters are and what they're dealing with. I love, and not all of it makes a lot of sense. It's like any good story where not every piece just fits together like, this is why that is this. Done. It's very human. It's, why is he comparing his kidneys and his kidney stones to the bowels of this island?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of a metaphor is that? And, like, you just sit there and you stop and you're like, you keep walking a little bit. What is he talking about? And you're looking around in the caves. Like, I thought it did what it did very well. And going through the rest of these walking sims, I was very surprised to find very little Dear Esther in any of them.
Yeah.
Especially considering it was like the first, or in terms of like when we look back and think about this genre.
Yeah, Dear Esther is the first.
I don't think that there's much Dear Esther in any of these games. Mm-hmm. And if I were to pick from this list that I've played, it'd be on the top half for sure.
Really,
I liked it quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm very surprised to say that it's up there for me as well, because of the music. Jessica Curry's score is absolutely phenomenal, and I think it plays a huge part in that game's success. I don't think any one part of that game could stand alone. The world is obviously pretty barren. Mm-hmm. You're not doing anything. There's no interaction in the world. You're just walking from point A to point B and listening to what happens.
And sometimes there's no, like, even signs of human anything. Maybe just the scratchings on the guy's scratchings on the wall. Like, that's it. It's just keep walking. Mm-hmm. Like, look at this empty field. Climb up this hill.
So you've got the world, which is barren. The narrative, which is difficult to grapple with for me.
If I can be pretentious again, it's modernist. And so, like, modernism, you think of William Faulkner. My favorite chapter from him ever is this college student who's extremely well written. He's well spoken. He writes and it's from his perspective, slowly having a mental breakdown. And as the chapter, it's like 80 to 100 pages of just consistent him thinking and talking, and he just devolves into unintelligible garbage by the end. You have no idea what this guy's talking about. Time itself is starting to blend in this dude's head. Like, things just don't make sense anymore. And it's that kind of idea. You're just getting this one dude's perspective, and it's pretty broken. And I love piecing the story together that way.
Mm-hmm. And the third part being the music.
Beautiful.
I don't think any of those can stand alone by themselves. Well, the soundtrack I've already listened to like 5 or 6 times since I played it last week. I do think it's really a masterful work. But they all work so closely together to deliver that experience. The experience cannot be had, is what I mean to say. The experience cannot be had without all 3 of those things working so well in tandem. And the world is... I really, really enjoy Source Engine. Source Engine visuals.
Really?
Yeah. And, this game's pretty old. What is it, 12 years old now, I think? I mean, we played the Landmark Edition, which came out a few years ago, so it's been remastered. But it's still got... the visuals have not been overhauled very much. And I think Source Engine just holds up so well.
Okay, yeah.
I love the way it looks.
The blues, man. All the blues in the caves. Just really pretty.
Yeah. So that's Dear Esther.
Reminded me of the glowworms in Surf's Up. So that's the real literary illusion we should talk about. I think there's a lot of Surf's Up in this game. I could basically hear Shia LaBeouf saying, no. I'm kidding.
Okay.
Moving on.
Yeah.
What's next?
That's it for Dear Esther. I don't really have anything else unless you want to.
No, I think the game, and this is honestly, a lot of people level this as a criticism. I wouldn't call it a criticism, but that's the game. That's it.
Yeah, there's no interaction.
And sure, some of the other games have very little interaction, but Dear Esther is just this. It's not even like trying to be different or bigger or complex. It is. Here you go.
Well,
it is.
It was being different in that it was not those things you just mentioned, whereas the other walking sims, Dear Esther was being different from other video games, whereas other walking sims are being different from Dear Esther. I guess my point is, though,
it's not trying anything else except for what it is. Like, and I know that sounds stupid and unintelligible, but it's hard to put into words that this game is... It's like reading an Ernest Hemingway short story. It is straight up just the words on the page. He has trimmed all the fat. There is nothing but exactly what he wanted to say on that page. And, he wrote at the same time as Faulkner, who I already brought up. Faulkner wrote 500-page books. Hemingway wrote 80-page books, Like, he just trimmed all of that fat. And I think this is the game, out of all of them, that I think has the least fat. It is exactly what it wanted to be. There's nothing where... I don't think there's anything where the designers go, I wish we could have, we should have really changed it, this fundamental aspect of it, we should have done this differently. It's like, sure, maybe little nitpicky things, but overall, like, that is what they wanted to put out, and that's it.
All right, so following that, we played the first, I think, pillar of this genre. Yes, Dear Esther solidified the genre as a thing that people were paying attention to, but Gone Home, I think, really shifted the view of what the genre is capable of.
It's hard to talk about without talking about, maybe part of that success and part of that reason, maybe because of the disappointment around it in some cases, right?
Sure.
That dissonance between what was marketed and what was delivered.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, because some people will really think it's going to be this horror experience. And...
Or at least have some horror elements in it. And it doesn't.
Not in the slightest.
There's, if you stand still when you're walking down the hallway on the second floor to look at the entrance to the attic, maybe that's spooky. But that's it.
And the creaks of the house. And
sure.
You're alone.
But they're not creaks like in the last game we'll talk about.
Yeah, no, for sure.
that really got me.
Yeah, that was a little
yeah, but it's just a creaky house. It's not like you hear things scampering through the walls.
Going bump into that.
Correct. There's none of that. I didn't know that was the case. I didn't realize it was marketed that way, so that didn't have any effect on me.
I didn't realize till after. I went in pretty clean.
Mm-hmm. But I can sympathize with that. I was very excited for... was Guillermo del Toro's love story? Crimson Peak. That was absolutely marketed as a horror movie.
Yeah, it's probably the worst case of mismarketing I can think of. Like,
it's really bad.
It's really bad.
So I was very disappointed.
Theory of why Iron Man 3 is one of the most interesting films ever made?
Pray tell.
Because it's probably one of my least favorite.
From Gone Home, I just want to, make sure we're following. We've gone from Dear Esther to Gone Home to Iron Man 3.
You're welcome. So I had this theory for a long time, and I don't really like Iron Man 3 that much, if I'm being honest. I've seen it, I think, maybe once. Just once all the way through in theaters. That was it. It's not, in my opinion, it's not a very strong Marvel movie.
Sure.
However, that being said, it is a movie where the marketing played into the inherent subversion of that film about the, with Ben Kingsley's character. Mm-hmm. You're like, he's built up. And Ben Kingsley's a killer actor. He's so good. And the marketing pinned everything on him. Knowing exactly what Shane Black was going to do, they pinned everything on him. And so when that rug is pulled out and he's just, you don't want to go in there for 5 minutes, when he becomes that guy, the marketing has then become a part of telling that story.
Yeah.
Like, intentionally, basically.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
And that's why that movie's really interesting to me. Although I've only ever seen it once because it's fine.
Yeah,
but the idea that the marketing has reached a point where it influences... It already has influenced the way you experience a story, but now it's influencing the impact of an actual moment in that film outside of its marketing.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. But it's not Gone Home.
It's not. Let's talk about that because that's why we're here.
Again, I want to hear your opinions, man.
Okay. Gone Home is on the lower end for me of the ones we played, but not because it's bad. I actually liked it quite a bit. You and I talked a lot about the inherent love story that's told there. I found it fine. It was fine. I did a little bit of, digging, and there's definitely something more going on there. Lots of stuff about your dad and your mom and your uncle, and a lot of family history there that's kind of dark. And what I think Gone Home does well, and I think far better than, listening to your sister tell the story, is the environmental storytelling. I think it's the first one, like, Dear Esther has some of it, but Gone Home, that house tells a story. Mm-hmm. And it's more than just picking up and reading a letter or an object. Like, the house itself is communicating something in every room, whether it's directly related to the story you're being told by your sister, or if it's just a story separate from someone else in your family. Like, it's there, and it's telling that story that way. You want to stay in the room. You want to look around. You want to figure out what the story is, regardless of whether it's being told to you or not. And that's what I think. I think, actually, of all of them that I played, let me think. Yeah, of all of them, that did it the best, I think.
Really?
I think Gone Home's environmental storytelling was top-notch and the best part of the game.
Yeah, I think I'd agree. Out of the ones that I played, I think I played 2 more than you did. 3, but we don't have to talk about Fatale, whatever that is.
Okay.
So, I put Gone Home way up there for me. This is one I had not played yet. I'll tell you what I've played previously. Gone Home is not one of them. I think maybe played half an hour of Gone Home, maybe many years ago. But this is the first time I really sat down and intentionally went through the whole thing. This one really resonated with me. I really loved the story here. The love story that's being told. I can really empathize with that character, with Sam.
And don't get me wrong, like, it's beautifully told in a beautiful story. It's just, I don't know, just didn't hit my eye buttons, I guess.
Sure. I've always had sort of an affinity for high school love stories. And I don't mean, really cheesy things, but, if you look at something like this or Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl, I think that one really does it well.
Oh man, I've not seen that in a while.
Yeah, me and Katie watched that one recently.
Oh man, what is that writer's name?
I
always forget. But that's Ryan Gosling, right? And is it that one, or is that
no?
Who's
no? It's just a bunch of kids. There's.
Sorry, I was thinking of Lars and the Real Girl.
No.
Which is hilarious.
Yeah, it's a good one. But no,
okay.
This is another high school romance.
No, okay, I'm on the same page now. Never mind.
Those stories resonate with me pretty deeply because I grew up in a home that didn't see young adults or kids as having the ability to have real experiences. They were always, demeaned, or not, the kids were not demeaned, but just their experiences were made very light of. And I don't think that's the case. I really like kids. I've worked with kids a lot at summer schools and things of that nature. And I see how real their experiences are. Even though as an adult...
wasn't that far away from us, too. To think about how really recently being a kid was for us.
Yeah.
10 years ago, I was in high school. I was 16. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I just started driving.
And also, it resonated with me very personally because I had that high school romance. I don't think you did. No. I married my high school sweetheart. We started dating at 15, got married very young. So that all resonated with me. I don't mean I can empathize with her in that I have had the same struggles as she has had as a young lesbian.
Sure, it's the love part.
Yeah.
Right? That infatuation, that all of a sudden you have this entirely new drive that has never been there before, that is becoming the core impetus of all of your actions.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
it's communicated so well.
Yes, I think it is done expertly. This is where we had the conversation about two different kinds of love.
Yeah.
That sort of honeymoon sort of love that I think Sam is experiencing in this story, and then something much more
sustainable,
long-lasting, sustainable, sure. Which is not to say that Sam and I forget her girlfriend's name.
Yeah, me too.
Not to say that is not a sustainable relationship.
Sure,
but there is something.
The kind of love being celebrated in the story is not that kind that they're talking about. Like, that might be there still, but the kind of love that it's really focusing on driving home is that kind.
New young love.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's what really inspired that conversation, and that's what Sayonara, the other kind of love there, is what Sayonara is focusing on.
Yeah.
Especially with that last song. But yeah, it just...
I cried on that last song.
Yeah.
I was sitting there, I had to go pick my wife up from work, and I was gonna be late, and I just had to sit there and let it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Man. And then I listened to it 10 times in the morning
to
go get my wife.
For sure. I think something that also really helped this one resonate with me is that we both grew up in Christian homes.
Mm-hmm.
I have many friends that grew up in a home like that. My parents were not strict. I'm very surprised even today at how trusting they were and just how atypical they were for that when compared to the Christian parents around me. I've seen Christian parents be so controlling, and it never works. I don't know what kind of mindset you must be in to think that you're the one that's going to be able to keep your kids safe from the gays. I don't know, whatever. I see just totally overbearing parents, and guess what? Daughter's pregnant at 14.
Yeah, it happens.
Great job, guys. Over and over and over again. I see that sort of thing. And I don't know what causes that mindset.
And yeah, it's honestly really sad, because you even look at some of those, usually one of the most popular Bible stories ever is the prodigal son. It's supposed to be the perfect dad, right? Raising two kids, and one turns out a total bum, and one turns out like the goody two shoes. At the end of the day, it's not your choice. So stop, raise them in the understanding that they're becoming their own people. And
yeah,
there's a point where, when I turned 13, 14, my parents were just what are we gonna punish you now? The things you're gonna choose to do now are gonna punish yourself. So unless it's something that's, we'll let you know, we're gonna tell you when you're doing something wrong, but man, you get in a car wreck, I'm not gonna bail you out. I'm not gonna. You have a job, pay for it. You know what I mean? That was enough. That was enough for a while.
Yep, for sure. My parents' thing was, we're not going to. We'll trust you until you give us a reason not to. And I just mentioned,
pretty healthy.
It was,
yeah,
because I've seen many friends and just members of the various churches that I've been a part of, their family structure sort of fall apart because the family structure cannot support the weight of the parents' rules. And I slept in my girlfriend's house 4 or 5 times a week for 4 years. And which this is not to say that that's what you have to do. I'm not making any statement on this, but we waited till marriage.
Yeah.
And I stayed the night at her house multiple times a week. But
which, based on the other friends' parents that you're talking about, would have actual conniption fits, skin peeling back from their face.
Correct.
Yeah, it's really cool to see this game.
So I get it.
Yeah.
I understand what she was going through, partly.
Yeah, again, it communicates those ideas so well, and environmentally most of the time. Like, come on, games, get on it. Why do so many people play Dark Souls? Because they just like being able to tell that story themselves and to themselves. Mm-hmm. Get on it, people.
The environment was a huge part of this game, but also the voice work is, I think, the best in any of these games. Oh yeah. Oh, never mind.
Yeah, okay.
Second best. Yeah. Second best for sure. We'll talk about. Is it next?
No, we're gonna talk about. You're gonna talk about Vanishing Ethan Carter next. I think.
No, that's fine. We'll talk about it later. I guess we'll talk about the ones we've played together.
Okay. So the next one on the list, though, is still not that one. It
is
the Stanley Parable.
I just played that this morning.
I've never played it. It has been on the list forever.
Yeah, this is one of the ones that I had played before.
And let me tell you, this is my favorite one of all the ones we played.
Except for Edith Finch, right?
Yeah, Edith Finch doesn't count. We played it last time. Edith Finch is still my favorite walking sim, technically.
Yeah, it is the shining example of what the genre is capable of.
Correct. But of what we've played this time, and I guess by extension, it is my second favorite walking sim, is the Stanley Parable. It is so elegant and tongue-in-cheek and funny. Yeah. It communicates its ideas both by thumping you on the head with them, but also not. Like,
correct.
It's just brilliant. And, for the uninitiated, you spawn, for lack of a better word, in your office, and your job is to sit there and press buttons.
Mm-hmm. And you are a mindless office working drone.
And you are immediately you are the player. You are sitting there pressing the buttons someone is telling you to. And this narrator, who is basically, he's part the developer and part the game, and it kind of splits in certain sections, but he's the intention of the game.
I think, because one of the endings makes it very clear that he's just the game, but is a game that's aware that there's a developer.
Correct. So,
or no, he's not even aware that.
No, so
based on one of the endings, we'll talk about it.
What happens is, he's the voice regardless of the game to you, whether it is actually reflecting the developer's intention or not. And the developers are kind of represented by this yellow line. Sometimes. Again, it's really like, there's no like clear definitions all the time, and it changes depending on which ending you're going for.
Mm-hmm.
But, he'll narrate for you. Stanley walked outside and he wasn't sure what he was going to do. And then he goes, he came to 2 doors and took the door on the left. And you can take the door on the right, like, it's fine. And he goes, well, that's okay. Stanley probably just wanted to go and see the break room. Like, he'll and now that he's seen the break room, he stands still for a moment, takes it in, and goes on his way. He sees the door on his left, taking him back to where he's supposed to go. No, I think you're going the wrong way. Why? You can trust me. It's okay. Come
yeah, that's my favorite part when he's well. There's many parts where he does this, but he's trying to be reassuring to Stanley, to you that he only has your best interest in mind.
Like, I'm trying to get you where you want to be.
Yeah.
Trust me. And if you keep ignoring it, this is the surprise. It's the first ending I found was I just disobeyed him consistently. I was like, I gotta know. And so you go there and you become a part of this weird thing. You have this fake wife who's like just a mannequin, and you get locked in this room, and he's just, fine, is this what you wanted? Is this really what you wanted? All right then. And he like goes on this big tirade, and then he's like, and then what, you're not going to push the button? You're not going to push the button. I'm like, oh, please show me how free you actually are. And on the screen it says press the K key or whatever. Go on, show me how in control of your life you are. Don't press anything. And you can sit there for hours and nothing will happen. You can't get out. You can't do anything until you press that button. He goes, see, that's what I thought. So, like,
he's right there.
And that's the point of the game, is showing really like limited, it's this struggle between the developer's intention, but also like how free can a player actually be? How much freedom can we really actually give them? And where does that end? Is what we want for them best? What is a game? Is a game art? Is a game a game? Like what is a game?
It's definitely I think a discussion, not really a statement, because there's many statements being made that some of them are conflicting. So it's more of a discussion about the relationship between the game and the player, and the player and the developer, and the game and the developer.
It is
so funny. My favorite ending is the confusion ending.
Did you get that?
Yeah,
the best
absolutely. One. So you go down an elevator and he's like, oh, so I can't do that.
It's okay. Don't worry about it.
So he's like, oh, so to get back to the story, we need to go this way. And he opens the door and you're about to go through it. And he's like, oh, wait a minute. No, let me look through some things. And he's like, you hear the narrator like rustling through some papers. He's like, okay, it's definitely this way. And then he closes the door on you. No, I'm so sorry. Okay, fine. I guess go this way.
Yeah.
And you just like break the game and it starts over. And he starts narrating again and then realizes, I didn't start over. I didn't mean to start over. So it takes you through a couple more times, but every time it becomes less and less reliable. Like the game is more and more broken until finally you get to a point where there is the spanning tree of all of your options. Before you get in
there, the best thing is there's 2 doors and he's going, well, this is a powerful moment, Stanley. This is your time. Here's what you can do. Take your choice. This is your moment, Stanley. And you go through and you realize both doors go into the same room. And it's this tree showing like what is going to happen throughout the rest of this ending. And he's like, really? That's it? I'm going to reset the game? I'm not going to be here anymore? Well, this is disappointing. And he's like,
yeah, he realizes that he is also being controlled by something. And in a later ending, there's another narrator that takes over this narrator and takes you to the credits, or the like developer room where the credits are. I really like those 2 endings, but the confusion
the
one
ending.
The museum,
because the game narrator tries to kill you.
Yeah.
He's just so sick of your crap.
Yeah, I really like the confusion, of course. That's the best. But
like the museum ending.
That's fine. That's fine.
I like that one.
The one where you kill yourself. Like 4 times. Oh,
yes.
He thinks
he's like going slowly more and more insane, and he just
Yeah. And well, no, you're this is not the one where you're going insane. But there is one where you go insane and you're like,
out a window.
No, there's like a stairwell that you just fall down to the bottom of the stairwell, but it's not enough to kill you. And he's like, really? Is that, you hate me that much, Stanley?
Oh, I didn't see that one.
And so you walk back up and you drop off again, and he becomes really sad that you don't want to be with him that badly. And now it becomes like this really somber moment. Like, I'm trying to do this for you, Stanley. I want what's best for you. And I don't think that this is going to have the outcome that you think it's going to have, Stanley. So you do it again, man. And you have to jump off 4 times before you finally die. And when your eyes close, he's like really sad that you thought it necessary to do that.
I love that the normal ending, if you follow everything he tells you to do, is a very happy ending.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's
that's the first one I did, because I played this game before.
Do it. I had to watch someone do it because I was just kept breaking the rules.
Yeah, I think there's only 2 or 3 that I didn't do, because last time I played.
You didn't do the one where you have to push the button for 4 hours.
No.
Yeah, you have to like keep the baby from burning alive.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, your boy did not do that.
Yeah. I didn't do. There's one where you have to like clip onto a desk and then crouch and crawl out of the window that the desk is near. You're breaking the geometry of the game. But I think I did something that prevented that from happening, because I did the heaven ending. And that's the one where you find the code on all the computers, you activate it, and then you can go to heaven. And it's just buttons. You're just in a white void pressing buttons. Yeah. And when I was pressing the button on that desk, I did clip onto the desk. I was like, that's weird. So I finally like got out of that geometry and was able to press the button. But when I went back to it after I discovered that was part of an ending, I could no longer clip onto the desk. So that one didn't work, and then the rocket ending didn't work, but I think that's like kind of intentional. I was reading that based on several endings that you may have already gotten, the escape rocket breaks, and like that ending is, I don't know if it's broken intentionally or if it's actually broken and the game is not working properly. It's very hard to tell.
My favorite joke in the whole game is because you have to wait for the narrator to tell you the code to your boss's little button, and if you're going through that ending again, you know the code, so you just plug it in real fast. And he's like, and Stanley was being impatient, so Stanley's going to sit here and listen to some smooth music to calm himself down.
Yeah,
and so good. Yeah, my favorite endings. Yeah, the really a lot of them are really good, but I think the one that just stuck with me is the one where you have to push the button to progress the game, showing you like you trying to be free, trying to make freedom.
Yeah, I suppose that one is that'd probably be third for me.
Yeah.
I really liked the one where you have to kill yourself.
Yeah,
it got really dark. I was like, what is happening right now?
I was about to say the one where you go insane.
Oh, that one was good. That one's definitely good.
Was so funny.
Where you find where the woman outside finds you, and she like doesn't have time for your dead body.
Yeah,
so just goes to work.
It's just weird, man.
Yeah,
I love it. Yeah, all of them are just really good. I think a lot of thought, a lot of time went into this game.
Absolutely,
it's really unique. It's a game you're not gonna be able to play in any other way. I think it's of all of them, I think the most interesting use of the format of walking
for
simulator.
sure. If you want to,
the broom closet ending superior.
Oh yeah. I didn't officially get that ending, but I was in the broom closet for a moment. You got to be there for a couple minutes, right?
Yeah, you got to be there.
Just stay there. So if you want another experience like that's maybe going to take half hour of your time. I played it earlier this year. Dr. Langeskov, the Tiger, and the Terribly Cursed Emerald.
Yeah.
It's made by the same guy, and it is maybe half an hour. You'll play it once, maybe it's 10, 12 minutes, but you'll want to play it again, and once you realize that there's I won't tell you. Because you want to do it twice because you want to experience the narrator first. On the second playthrough, the narrator is going to be interrupted, but he's interrupted by Justin Roiland, who. So this was.
Ooh-wee, Rick.
Yeah, a lot of these characters are some of the characters from Rick and Morty. Okay. I think this is like pre-Rick and Morty or pre some of those characters in Rick and Morty. So, if you hear barking right now, that's my dog. That's my big boy. He's pretty loud. Sorry about that.
I'm pretty loud though. So
yeah.
Maybe that's why he keeps us both around.
Maybe. Yeah, you can hear them arguing right now. I'm sorry.
It's okay. We're gonna move on.
Because
what is next?
What is next? We've got not Fatale.
Good. Okay.
I want you to just see it. Okay. Just watch the trailer or something. It was maybe 45 minutes. Firewatch.
Yes.
For a little while, this was
the hot item.
This was the hot item. And I think for good reason. I love Firewatch. I played it before. I played it when it came out. And, rest their soul. Campo Santo. They were purchased by Valve. And their next game, Valley of the Kings, has been put on hold. We don't know if it's indefinite, but that team started doing what was that? Alex started doing Alex.
Oh, okay.
Which that's great. I'm very happy Alex exists. That is, from what I hear, like the premier VR title right now.
Sure.
And that's great. I would like to see Valley of the Kings though. Please, please. Firewatch. I think these characters are incredible. The voice work really draws you into those characters. I want you to tell me about the characters, Zach. I keep asking for Zach's opinion because I already like these games. I have not dove into the genre as much as I have now. I've played just a few of these, but I already had a pretty big interest in the genre. Sure. This is all new for Zach, and I want to know what he feels, what he
Firewatch experiences. The only one I liked better was Stanley Parable.
Really?
The only one I liked better, and only because of what it was talking about,
sure,
really, and how funny it was. But Firewatch is something that you would see taught in a college classroom if it was a short story. I'm talking, it has that much depth. Maybe not like the plot. Like the plot's pretty simple, right? But
sure,
you don't read short stories in college for the plot anyway, right? It's it's a short film or a short story. They're typically, and a lot of these fall into the category, they're typically twist heavy. They typically are very, very character focused. And the themes are very focused. They happen fast, and you piece together something that's really deep in a lot of ways, something that's hard to wrestle with. I'm telling you, if 20 years, give it 20 years, maybe 30, this will be taught in college classrooms. Firewatch.
What?
And not because of its.
I'm not saying it's not worthy. I just want to know.
No, and
what
not
you think.
This is outside of its video game value. Like if it was like a video game literacy or whatever was taught, I don't think this game would be picked.
No, because the phrase video game literacy means something very different.
I agree, but it's because of the way it's formatted and the way it's told, the kind of ideas it's addressing, the kind of themes that it's wrestling with, and just how deftly it works with them. Picture, there's I'm gonna talk about Ernest Hemingway again because I have a giant tattoo of Old Man at Sea on my back. So he has a short story. It's called Hills Like White Elephants that is only dialogue. And the main draw is that these two characters, I can't remember if they're husband wife or just a couple, are skirting around trying to decide to have an abortion, but the word abortion is never said. I don't even know if the word baby is said. You are having to pick up solely based on context clues. There is no description. I'm talking, it is just dialogue back and forth. And you have to pick that up. You have to pick up what's going on in this conversation. Firewatch is that good in terms of how well it's written. It really is. And what I appreciate about it is something that I'm going to criticize about Rachel Foster when we get there, is your walkie-talkie, as you're selecting stuff to say, it's always the right time. It comes at just the right time. Sure. Every time. You never feel like, oh my gosh, can you just stop talking? You never feel, man, I really feel like there's something to say here right now. Like, I never felt that. I always just was like, yeah, this makes sense that it is time to call on my walkie-talkie. And you want to. You like her.
Very much.
You like her a lot.
Very much like her.
And, regardless of any decisions you make in conversation or anything like that, I doubt any of it. I've only played it once. I doubt what you choose in conversations matters at all towards the story.
No.
Yeah, and I've picked up on that. I was pretty sure that's what's happening, but I didn't care. I thought about it. What should I say to her? Mm-hmm. You really care, and it's because
the end is not going to be affected, but how the end happens is going to be affected, because your choices up to that point, when you make those final three choices, she asks you if you want her to stay, and you say go, wait, and why wouldn't you stay, or something like that, whatever the third one is. Those will all be influenced by how your relationship is formed up to that point.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, for me, I think it's an example of extremely good writing that doesn't show its hand, doesn't overshow its hand. Mm-hmm. I think for me, the main draw of the game is that relationship. I think everybody would say that. Again, the voice acting
absolutely
really hits the nail on the head. But, another game come along and have something that valuable and that interesting, but Firewatch, the pacing is perfect. It's perfect. It's the walkie-talkie. I think calls should have about now. There's a reason to call. You know what? I think
also, again, on timing, all of your responses have different times that you're allowed to select them. You're allowed to ponder that decision. Mm-hmm. Those are also very well paced. Mm-hmm. Every time it provides weight to the decision. Absolutely. When it needs to.
And because it's a walkie-talkie, it makes sense that you're a little silent for a second. Mm-hmm. It makes sense. The game is well put together, and I know a lot of people, may be disappointed by the ending, and I think it's valid. You can be a little, bummed out about it, but that's not the point of the story.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And that ending nails that story and what's being said, and gosh, yeah, I really like the writing in this game, man.
Yeah, I'd like to touch on that, and I'm gonna regurgitate something a little bit here, harkening back to the deepest dive from MinMax.
Okay.
For Edith Finch.
It's a great deepest dive. You should watch it.
Yeah, really all their deepest dives. One day, hopefully we can be 10% of what they are.
Final Fantasy VII remake one. Wow, that made me like that game even more.
Yeah.
Just so much good stuff that
I'll play it before the end of the year for sure.
I'm excited for you, man. I think you'll like huge chunks of that game.
Yeah. This is something I don't think enough people are able to sort of grapple with. Even, and this is true of any media, you know, be it a book, a song, a movie specifically, or in this case, a game, the point of the story and what you and your expectations don't always have to match. And Firewatch is a great example. No, yes, I was very disappointed. Or no, I wasn't disappointed with the ending. I didn't like it, but at the same time, because I wanted something else to happen.
Sure, of
But
course.
I like that that's what happened.
Of course.
Because the experience, it makes the experience.
I agree.
Well, I mean, the whole experience is so cohesive. Everything is making the experience. But the point is, even though the decision the character makes at the end is not what I wanted to see, and it was not a happy ending, I still appreciate it for everything it's doing, and I enjoyed it, even
Absolutely.
though I was really driven to resent her. At least for my first playthrough, I played it when it came out. The second playthrough, I knew what was going to happen, so I sort of allowed that relationship to develop a little differently. I was very flirtatious in the first playthrough, and I was a little more reserved in this one. There's still some points where I was really trying to roleplay, and I think it would be very difficult to not be flirtatious in that situation. I think most people I know would be, except for maybe like David Hendry, who just loves his wife so much. Which is not bad. I said that like loves his wife.
How can you love
idiot.
your wife?
Yeah, I didn't mean to say it like that. But
no, it's not even like you're trying to be flirty. I know it's just chemistry, and
yeah,
exactly. With that person, and you wanna
the chemistry between these two
and
characters,
bounce off of them, and yeah, I totally get it.
So I tried to be a little more reserved because I knew what was going to happen, and I didn't feel the same way. I was still very disappointed. I would have liked to see that relationship develop a little more. Oh, spoilers, by the way, we didn't say that in the beginning, but we definitely will. We'll definitely mention that when we come back for Rachel Foster. I think we should take a break after this. But
okay,
when we come back for Rachel Foster, that's a new game that came out this year. We should definitely put a spoiler warning on that. The newest game from this list is 4 years old, so that's on you. Sorry. But anyway, yeah, I was not as driven to hate Delilah by the end of this.
I didn't hate her at all for making that decision. It was sad because like she's still running.
Yeah.
And it's just like you want, like for me it wasn't like I want them to get together. It's like I want her to heal.
Yeah, and that's where I came from. The first time I played, I was so invested in that relationship, and I was trying to put myself in those shoes. Having your wife, come down with Alzheimer's at the age of 40, you still have so much life ahead of you. She's living with her parents now, and I feel if they were good people, they would also want him to move on. I've met someone in a similar situation. Something happened to her husband, and her in-laws took her husband and pushed her to have her own life because she was 40. I think he was like, it doesn't matter. I was friends with some folks that had something happen, so I've experienced secondhand a similar relationship, and I feel like his in-laws should have encouraged him to move on, and he would have moved on. So that's what I roleplayed my first time around. He was pursuing Delilah, and so that's why I was so let down by the end of that. But this time, yeah, I was in. I think your boat there. It was sad to see that she's still so. I wanted to say weak at first, but I don't think she's weak. She's scared, and she is running.
She's hurting.
Yeah. For sure.
And that's what I like about the end of this game is that regardless of how you play and regardless of your relationship with Delilah, you still have that push to go and at least, stop running. Because this is something that I don't want to go too far, but the end of Toradora deals with a lot. Is like, never mind. I'm not going to go any further because you haven't seen it. But yeah, it's the idea of what does that actually look like in your life, and to see this game not just make it about this cool relationship and stuff, but make it about actual healing and actual change in his life. And to see her not be able to do that, like, it's good writing, man. It's great writing. Yeah. So, yeah.
I'm happy you enjoyed it, man. I'm happy you've enjoyed most of these, it seems.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, of the ones we've talked about, the only one, Gone Home, may not have hit as hard as the other, but I still really like Gone Home and would recommend it to people, So, there's only one game of the ones I've played, because I've only played 2 of the remaining ones. There's only one that I don't think I'd recommend to people.
2 of the remaining ones.
I played Abzu.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so we'll talk about... we both played one, or I guess I played 2 that the other one did not play. So we'll... let's go ahead and take a break, folks. We've been going for a little while now. We'll come back and talk about the rest of these and then really talk about the genre as a whole. But Zach, why don't you go ahead and mention our Patreon and whatnot?
Yeah, so we have Patreon, and most importantly, that $2 tier... Get access to our Discord. We're going to be doing a lot of more personal stuff, a lot of more sharing games more directly. We have little community events, stuff like that. It's just easier to share that stuff on Discord, especially when you have that, just that little $2. It's going to make sure that we get to keep our community in a place where it's not going to be drowned out by too many voices. We're going to be able to share those games and talk, and I'm excited for it. So definitely want to make sure that. But even so, we still are active on Twitter. We like to post to Twitter a lot, so if you want to know what's happening the fastest, that's the best way. But I mean, we also post videos on YouTube. Those of you who listen to on YouTube, podcast platforms, we're on all of them. So just make sure you check us out all those places.
All right, we'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Break.
I don't want to have to cut this.
Okay.
Welcome back to the Unpatched Gaming Podcast. I was just reminiscing about Total Biscuit, and I was about to say the Co-Optional Podcast.
No, we are not that.
But no.
We are not that.
We are not the Co-Optional Podcast. Nobody is a Co-Optional Podcast anymore. Sad day.
Sad day.
Truly a sad day. All right. So we are still talking about the walking sim genre, because there's a lot to talk about. We were not able to play all the same games.
Yeah.
Most of them came from my library, and our times just, we had a lot of the same time available, so you weren't able to use my library. So I'll go ahead and talk about one of the 2 that I played that you were not able to play, and that is the Vanishing of Ethan Carter. I've been wanting to play this a long time. The aesthetic just really does it for me. It's a Lovecraftian game, and those Lovecraftian vibes are
molto bene.
Strong. Let me tell you. I want to talk about the negative parts of the game first.
Okay.
I was actually kind of let down by it. The puzzles are it's a very puzzle heavy walking sim.
Okay.
Well, no, I mean you wouldn't call it a puzzle game. There is a kind of puzzle in it, and you do that over and over and over.
Oh, okay.
And it gets old after the first time. And the first time is also the most difficult. Like, it doesn't... There's no... Let me set the scene for the game first. You are a private investigator, and I forget your name, but you're investigating the disappearance of Ethan Carter, a young boy. And... definitely going to be spoilers here. This is a pretty old game now. I think it's maybe 6 years old, 6 or 7. So I'm just going to talk about it openly. You're a private investigator. You're showing up on this family's property, or like this small village. There's only a few buildings here, but this small area that seems to have a very small community that once lived there. You're searching a few buildings for clues on about what happened to Ethan Carter.
Yeah.
But you have some sort of ability that's been given to you by the powers that be, and that is to see the history of a scene. If you see a blood spill, you're able to see where that came from, why it happened, and a few seconds before and after that happening. And so you've got to find clues around each environment, line up these scenes to get a clear picture of what happened, and then move on. Once you know that, you use that full clue to go figure out what else happened. And the first time you do it is, I think, the most difficult time occurrence of that. And then there's only one time in the nearly 5 hours that there's any variance on that. It's the same thing again and again. So it does leave a lot to be desired there, unfortunately. And one of the best moments in the game is that time where they use a similar formula but mix it up in a way to allow for something interesting.
Sure.
And what happens there, when it finally clicked, I left the house. So I guess I'll get to what it is. There's a pretty small house that has had a curse put on it, or some sort of protective spell. And when you walk in the house, there's like a piece of paper laying on the floor. You can look at it and read the spell, and the puzzle starts. And what happens is when you look through a doorway, there's a room there.
Okay.
But you can then like blink and you're looking at a different room. And so based on your knowledge of the outside of the house, you're supposed to be able to line up, or not line up, but know what room would logically be there. Is that a hallway? Do you know that you're only 10 feet from the front door and looking at the west wall, so there's no way there could be a hallway going there? And that was really interesting. I thought it worked pretty well, and I didn't get it the first time. I probably spent about 10 minutes on it and left the house, and then maybe about 10 minutes later it finally clicked, and so I went back and did it. That was really satisfying, and it was a really interesting spin on that puzzle, and that's the only time they allow for any variety there. So the main gameplay loop of the game, unfortunately, is not very engaging, and it leans into that pretty heavily. So it should be engaging, but luckily it doesn't overstay its welcome. Like Dear Esther, this is a really evocative world. I absolutely loved exploring it, and there's not much to find. It's one of those environments that is not specifically made for the player. Like, you're not there to find a bunch of secrets and Easter eggs and things like that. So it's just there. It is a place that feels real. It's lived in, and it looks beautiful. This one's not Source, but I think it reminds me a lot of Source. It was I played the remaster on this one as well, the Redux, and that was remade in UE4. So looks absolutely gorgeous even now. The base game still looks good, but that remaster in UE4 is awesome, even so many years later. The score, I talk about the score a lot. I know a lot of people might not like it. I don't know. I guess once we get a community, we'll find out. But honestly, I'm probably not going to stop talking about music. This is serviceable. It does its job. It's nothing special, unfortunately. But again, the world was enough to keep me there, and just what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
Because it does, the house is found very early on, and it's not like breaking away to show you some memory or some vague story of a wizard that may have put a spell on this house. This is a wizard that in modern times put a spell on this house to hide his potion making operation with modern tools. So there is some sort of magic here, and it's happening in modern times. So that was very interesting to me.
Yeah.
And one of I think it's the second puzzle in sequence, but the first one I found, there is this, like, I think it's a traffic light or something just in the middle of the forest, just standing there on a pole in the middle of the forest. And as you walk up to it, it flashes in your face, and suddenly there's an astronaut standing in front of you. And you chase the astronaut, and you're abducted by this white sphere that takes you into space, and you go into a black hole with other white spheres, and you're peering out of the window, looking at other people peering out of the window at you. And it was a little bit, obviously not as incredible as that moment in Interstellar, but you're just about to breach the black hole when it cuts away to show you what's going on here. That stuff kept me really engaged. And then you do eventually summon an eldritch god, and then you wake up from a dream, and it starts to fall apart. Like the idea that there's actual Lovecraftian themes at play here in the real game world starts to fall apart. And by the end of it, I was very disappointed, unfortunately. That is what happens. It completely falls apart. The investigator is a character that Ethan Carter, the young boy, is writing. And he's writing a story for each of his family members who have been indoctrinated by this cult that's worshiping one of the old ones. And they end up murdering each other. Those are the individual vignettes he's writing for each of his family members in his little hideaway. And
I think we'll talk about it shortly, but it's so interesting how almost all of these games feel the need to have a twist in them somewhere. Like a lot of walking sims like to go for the twist, or like the subvert expectations. Like it's, I don't know, very short story-ish, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're all short stories, absolutely. I was kind of disappointed that there was a twist, like, because when all of them have a twist, none of them have a twist.
You're about to start a movie, and you go, "This movie has a great twist, man." You're like, "Great, now I know." Like, I'm gonna be looking for it. I'm gonna figure it out. Like, if you would just let me go in blind, I would have been surprised by the twist. Now I know.
Yeah, the twist didn't really get me. I'm sure, cool, that's what happened is kind of what I thought. And I'd hyped it up so much in my head just because the setting and I watched several trailers for it. It just really hyped it up for myself.
Sure.
And it unfortunately fell short. If you do revisit anything on this list that you weren't able to cover, I think you can unfortunately skip Ethan Carter.
That's not the only other one you played.
Yeah. Why don't you go and talk about yours, and then I'll talk about
okay. I just
Virginia.
played some Abzu. I didn't get to the end, quote unquote, of that game, but you don't really need to. It's just so peaceful. It's exactly what I think they were going for. It's magical, just delightful. It's kind of like, it reminds me of those, like, remember those little, like, desktop toys? You could, like, get little games that would just run on your desktop while you're doing stuff. And, like, I always had the Bionicle ones that would, like, roll around, and their little, like, rock would just roll around, and Toa would walk around with their fire swords or whatever. And I had those, and they were fun. It's kind of like that, or like a screensaver, but you're in it, and you're just, instead of, like, letting the computer rest while you're busy, you're resting and the computer's busy, and you just get to,
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it.
It's just really delightful.
Yeah, I've not played that one. It's pretty high on the list, really because of the development story behind it, and the visuals. I'd really like to.
Gorgeous.
It's been described as not a walking simulator, but a Zen simulator.
That's totally fine. Yeah,
and I'm down for that.
Yeah, that's all I have to say about it. Again,
really
very simple. I like it quite a bit.
Cool. I'll play it eventually. I thought it was going to be the first game I played when I recently upgraded my computer and got a beautiful 2K screen, and that's the first game I downloaded. But we were busy preparing for the cast, and I just never got around to it.
The first one I played was Doom 2016.
Yeah, I know. That's definitely your
go-to.
It's
so well optimized, man.
But now you can revisit Crysis and test all of your computer with Crysis again.
Yeah, apparently.
The last one I played, well, it was not the last one, but
the last one you played aside without me.
Yeah, is Virginia. And Virginia's an odd one. I've earnestly been interested in all of these games. Ethan Carter was probably the biggest letdown, but Virginia is really the oddest one for me. Surprisingly, it has even less interaction than Dear Esther.
That's incredible.
Yeah, sorry, I just sort of, you may have heard my tummy growl or something. Virginia is basically a movie. In every way, it is presented as a movie, so I find it very odd that whoever wanted to present this story decided that this was the medium to do it in. And this is not to say it's a bad movie or an interesting, whatever we call a video game. This is interesting. It is put in that category. I would say it's a digital experience, sure, but at the very least, it's interesting, and it made more interesting by the fact that someone felt compelled to make it a video game. It starts off so strong, and actually, if you allow yourself to accept that this is a movie, you're sitting down for 2 hours and you are holding the W key, or if you got a controller in, I don't even know if it works with a controller, you're holding forward and occasionally pressing the interaction button, but there are 0 choices to make. There's no exploration. It is the most on rails I've ever been. But if you can accept that, if you know you're going to sit down to watch a movie, I think it's pretty darn good.
Okay.
It is very much a David Lynch inspired trip. And it starts, I think, on par with... we were just talking about it. Shutter Island.
Most underrated movie ever.
I love Shutter Island. It's one of my absolute favorite movies. But it opens with this huge swelling orchestral soundtrack, and creates this really haunting moment. And it does that here, and it does it so expertly. This is not a soundtrack that I would listen to just for my own entertainment. Just like Shutter Island, that's an incredible soundtrack.
Boom, boom, boom.
I wouldn't listen to it for entertainment though, but it does what it does so well.
That's good.
So this game, if it doesn't have you hooked in about 12 seconds, it's probably not going to do it for you. And it is very short. It's maybe 2 hours, probably an hour and a half. Now, one of the huge selling points of this game was the camera work. This is a very low poly art style, so the processing is very, very low. The processing required, unless you're playing on my computer, and it did some really odd things. So the game is supposedly designed to be played at 30 frames a second. Like, there's a lock on 30 frames, and if you go into the settings, you can turn it off, but it warns you. It says, this is an experience designed to be played at 30 frames. But turning that off and letting it run at 60 does, at least that I could perceive, nothing to the experience. So while that lock was on, whatever is processing that lock was tanking my performance down to like 5 to 8 frames a second. But when you unlocked it, it's fine. So after you unlock it, the processing is very low. But because the processing is so low, it's able to make jump cuts, like what we're about to see in Ratchet and Clank. Sure. Because it doesn't have to dig through a physical disc, it is using whatever their new technology is for solid state drives. It's able to render an entirely new game world immediately. This game is playing with something similar to that, but it's a little sloppy, unfortunately. It's jump cuts. We see them in movies all the time. In this game, you'll be walking down a hallway and you're holding W as you do for the rest of the game, and of the FBI office that you're in, and suddenly it cuts to like a graveyard that you're walking, going up to your mom's gravestone, and as you're looking at it, you beginning to approach it, you look down, still holding W, it cuts to you walking down the hallway of your apartment, and no transition has been made. And it works pretty well a lot of the time, but it gets a little heavy-handed. Like, yes, it's an interesting idea there. It's not really done in video games ever, really, that I can remember. So it does it well when it doesn't hit you over the head with it.
Sure.
Let's see what else we got here. Oh, being pretty heavily inspired by David Lynch, a lot of things are absolutely bizarre. Like there's you almost hit a buffalo that's walking through the road.
The bizarre and the mundane.
Yeah, and then there's a point in the game where you have a lot of nightmares. It's like Firewatch. It's split up into days, like I don't know, several months as you're trying to solve this case, and you'll just suddenly wake up from a nightmare, and you'll see that there's this buffalo with bleeding eyes standing in your apartment room, and then it cuts to you waking up again from this dream you thought you were waking up from. So it's a little bizarre. The ending is a little ambiguous. Because it's unreliable. The I guess narration of the ending is unreliable because the ending only starts after you take acid. You've got some acid that you took from evidence during the case, and that's what allows you to move on and progress to the ending of the game. And it is nuts. It's really good if you just set your expectations. Yes, it is labeled as a video game. I won't take that away from it. I'm not going to say it's not a game. I'm not going to say it's not a video game, that is. It's a movie, and I think it's very interesting.
Okay.
And that opening is incredible.
Heard that.
All right, on to the last one, the most recent one. This is the next big budget game in this genre. This is The Suicide of Rachel Foster by Daedalic. They're really, well, I guess isn't too far out of their norm, but they are really taking steps to break away from the point-and-click adventure publisher. That's what they've been doing for, 20 years almost. They have been the stalwart publishers of point-and-click adventures.
And we thank them for it.
Yes, absolutely. And this is one of their sort of attempts at something different. And, yeah, take it away. Let's talk about suicide.
Yeah, let's talk about...
Been accidentally saying that all week.
Yeah, it's just like, maybe I should just call it Rachel Foster.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I played this game.
That's it? You played it?
I'm going to be really honest with you. Of everything we've played, this is the only one that I was underwhelmed by. I struggled to maintain an engagement with any of the stuff that's going on. I was frustrated by if I found something, it wouldn't let me pick it up until the story decided it was time for me to pick that thing up.
That was not a good choice.
We talked about in Firewatch, how perfectly timed those radio calls are. This game makes you sit there at the door. You found the door you need to go into, and you have to sit there and stand there and just wait for this call and this conversation to be finished before you can even go in and look around.
Or just wander aimlessly.
The item. Yeah.
And wondering what you're supposed to do. Yeah, I was also very underwhelmed by this. Unfortunately, not the only one that I was underwhelmed by. In fact, I think I was more underwhelmed by Ethan Carter. I had very high expectations. I had no expectations for this game. Yeah, I didn't know anything about it. I just knew that it was...
just the story didn't click with me.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were offended by this game, and I
really?
didn't get that.
Yeah, I didn't really look at...
After I finished it, I looked at
anything around the game.
A lot of the criticism towards the game isn't towards the stuff that we just talked about, which I think is what deserves the main criticism, but some people were offended. They think it didn't handle its themes very well. I guess. I don't know. You and I have both been fairly close to suicide and themes of, religious overbearance, and we've already talked about it even in this, and honestly, I don't think it handles them very well.
I don't think it handles them intelligently.
Intelligently is the right word. Like it's not an interesting lens. It's just kind of a thing that is there and has happened.
Yeah.
And,
I don't think anything about the game is particularly smart. I don't think it's not handled well in that it's negligent.
Sure.
It's a theme that
isn't explored very.
Yeah, someone
much.
heard about the theme before and loosely applied it here, and yeah.
That being said, though,
it's whatever.
I've talked pretty negatively about the game so far. The environment's great.
Yeah,
environment is extremely.
This is a very
evocative.
photorealistic game, whereas most of the other ones are highly stylized. There's almost no stylization in this.
Yeah, this one it's very pretty.
Yeah,
and it's fun to be there, and it's scary sometimes, man. I felt really unsettled in quite a few spots.
Absolutely. I had a really up and down experience here. Immediately, I was like, "Oh, I've done this before." 10 minutes into the game, "Oh, I've done this before. I've been here before. This is not doing anything new."
And especially because the primary relationship, it's already set up so much like Firewatch that it's impossible not for your brain to go, I really don't care about either of these people that much.
Yeah, but we had both also I played Firewatch after, but you had just come off of Firewatch, so that's maybe not a totally fair criticism.
The guy and the girl over the radio, a phone, one trying to help guide the other. And
see, I took it a totally different direction immediately. As soon as he started talking, I was like, "Oh, would you kindly?"
Oh yeah, no,
I called it. He didn't even finish his first sentence, and I don't know what it is that created that expectation in me.
No,
I don't know if it was a fault of the game or if it's just me that plays a lot of those games.
I think we just know how these games go, and it's going to subvert your expectations. They're just going to try to, but it's been done so many times now that there's no longer subversion there. It's just
it wasn't so much about the fact that it tried to subvert my expectations. It was I already knew who's.
Sure, I understand.
Yeah, we're gonna put it. We will have already put a warning up, but definitely spoiler warnings here.
Yeah,
we're gonna talk about it in depth.
I don't care because I pretty much immediately, because it's just a phone that you pick up and all of a sudden this guy's helping you and he knows everything that's going on. You're like, oh, he's here, and who knows what he actually wants, but he's here and he's going to
sure, yeah, and he is,
yeah. And for me though, like, I don't care if I know. So I knew the ending to 7 before I watched it,
really,
and I still love that movie, right? In fact, rewatching a movie where you know the twist ending is sometimes even better, right? For many reasons, but in this case, what I think is important is I can know your ending. I can know where you're going.
Yeah.
The whole time.
I actually, in some cases, have enjoyed. I mean, I have no way of knowing if I enjoyed it more, but I feel as though I have enjoyed the experience more than I would have if I didn't have the spoilers.
Sure.
Game of Thrones is a huge one. I saw that big moment in Game of Thrones season 1 where Ned gets his head cut off. I saw that and that episode before, and you can see all the little things.
That moment and its meaning are not lost.
Yeah.
And in fact, going in knowing that, you can see them building it, and it's interesting.
Yeah, that's why it's interesting.
That's what didn't work for me here, is that moment, that payoff, I did not care.
Yeah, because it expects the moment itself to carry the weight, and it doesn't feel earned.
Yeah. And so the best part of the game for me was just exploring the environment. And sure, there's nothing defined particularly, but there are touches of that environmental storytelling here and there. It's not as elegant as Gone Home, nor as rich, but it's just a cool environment. This hotel, dilapidated, it's broken down, but still, I don't know, parts still feel lived in, and some parts feel dark and creepy, and you don't want to be there sometimes.
And some places you don't even visit. Like, there's an arcade downstairs.
Yeah, there's a museum.
You never go in either of those.
Yeah, I just went in there because I like walking around, but...
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't need to, though. Like, it's never guiding you into either of those spaces.
Yeah, it's just there, and I like that. And not only that, but it is well drawn and well realized, right? It's a well realized space. I started to know my way around, but never quite enough, and I liked that.
Really?
You know what I mean? Like there were certain times where maybe is it that way that I go to get there? I think it is, and but you do draw this mental map, and I like the way the map isn't like, you are here. It's just a map, like an actual building. Floor plan layout.
Oh, I forgot to ask. Did you play Firewatch like that? In the settings, you can turn your map marker off. And since I had already played it,
No, I didn't know. I just typically when I first go through a game, unless it has big HUD implications, I will typically just play default.
Oh, really? I always open up the settings first before I press play. I want to make sure my settings are correct, and also
I do controls and graphics and sound and stuff, but when it comes to like anything that's not HUD related, I'll typically leave default.
Well, you can turn the map marker off.
That's cool.
In Firewatch, and it was kind of a struggle sometimes to build that mental map, but really satisfying when by the end I can just look at the map, choose a direction, and make it from one corner of the map to the other.
Yeah,
that was really satisfying. And yeah, you definitely do that here. I think the map is very well designed, and the space itself, it is very well. But there seems to be an inconsistency there. We mentioned earlier that there's places that are blocked off until you finish the conversation, and you can be there looking at the item, cannot interact with it, looking at the door, can't open it until the interaction or the radio prepped. Call has been finished. But I was able to make it into the church like on day 2. Find my way into the secret.
I did the same thing.
Oh, really? Okay.
Did the same thing.
Maybe it's intentional for some reason then, but that seemed like a inconsistency there.
Yeah, I made it in, but you can't do anything there. You can't look at stuff. You can't talk to Irving about it. Like, you can't do anything. You can only draw simple conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is fine sometimes, but it's just disappointing when I found the flashlight day too.
Yeah, but you can't pick it up.
Yeah, you can't pick it. You're just looking at it like that'll be useful. No, you don't think so, player character? Oh, okay. I mean, I as the player think it might be, but that's fine.
Yeah.
You leave it there. Now you're gonna have to walk in the dark and go find it. You can have fun with that.
Yeah. Right.
So
it was, I forget which day, but when it starts to get spooky, I think it does that really well.
It does it very well.
I was really invested by that point.
Yeah, I kept looking around. I'm like, what creepy thing is gonna?
Yeah,
crawl
the
out
sound design is so good in this game.
Yeah.
Just the creaks through the wall, and someone's there. Turns out to be Irving, but someone is running around frantically when you discover something that you maybe shouldn't, or he's about to make a call and say, hey, listen, I think maybe we should start to consider this avenue, but you hear something run across the ceiling first, and it's him on the other floor, and
it's not
all those
obvious all the time. You have to be going, it's a creak, it's like someone's up there, but it's just out. It's just quiet enough to where you as a human being, if you heard that, would go, I'm sure it's just the hotel.
Yeah. Yeah, because it escalates when it starts to reach the end. That's when it's like someone's obviously running up there. Yeah,
exactly.
But it starts off with just those little creaks. He's still creeping around on the first floor. You're both getting comfortable with each other, and that's something else I'll talk about in a minute. And oh, sorry for that big old bark there. Yeah, it's spooky. Some of it's really unsettling, like the mannequins and the little girl's room.
Mannequins and the little girl's room. Yeah, I don't like that. That's just
that was good. That really did it for me, man. Yeah. I was loving it. But
it does stuff really well. It just doesn't gel together into something that I like. This is the only game on this list that I wouldn't recommend to someone. Typically,
we're going to talk about this in a minute, so I won't say what I'm going to say. But after all of that, by the time I got to the ending, I was rolling my eyes. I just, the relationship that they felt did not feel earned. And we already talked about the reveal, the big reveal didn't feel very well earned or just very intelligently executed. So it was, I was already down. It's a huge spike in enjoyment and engagement, and then back down again, unfortunately.
Yeah. Oh well, I mean, that's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Let's kind of move on a little bit though. I want to talk about. We've talked about all these walking sims, but let's put them together. So first things first. Listeners haven't been playing these. Maybe maybe start to think about maybe I want to try it out. Maybe I want to say what would be the one that you would recommend as start here. This is where you should start. Maybe not the best, maybe not your favorite, this is where you think is a good entry point for most people.
Yeah, this is why I said I won't say what I'm going to say. So the spoiler warning is off. If you're really interested in jumping in, hopefully you skipped all that, because I actually think Rachel Foster might be a good one to start with.
No, what?
There are it's my least favorite on this list, but if you just think about the general viewer or the general player, I think it's a good game for, just like the everyday player.
I don't think so.
I don't think, the general player is not going to know the twist before he even finishes his first sentence.
Maybe, but even then I don't think that twist or that story moment is deserved, and you have to be patient. I have to sit there and, like, especially for maybe players who don't play games a lot, it might be worse, but even players who do play games a lot, you're going to be sitting there listening to this guy talk, and you're like, why can't I just open this door? Why can't I just open this door? Let me. I guess you're right,
because just before this conversation, my answer to that question was Firewatch.
Yeah, that's my answer.
I'm not going to disagree with you, but I just think there's some things in there that are probably more generally appealing.
Possibly, but I think the core motivation to continue playing the game in Firewatch is the strongest of probably any of these for it, just the broadest audience sense. I think, Gone Home maybe for some people, but and then of course Stanley Parable for people who think about games like we do.
Stanley Parable is definitely a gamer's game. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you're definitely right about
say
Rachel Foster.
That Firewatch is the one where that is the only game on this whole list where I played beginning to end primarily because of the story happening. And what a lot of people are going to want is that strong story. I think of all of them, Dear Esther is kind of an exception because of the way that it's written, and my particular tastes. But Firewatch just in general is the best written. Players are going to want to keep going through that game because of the relationship on that phone.
Well,
right?
You mentioned Firewatch, but we're not talking about necessarily the games that we played in these past 2 weeks, but walking sims. So would you, as an introductory walking sim, would you put Firewatch over Edith Finch?
I think for a general audience, yes.
Sure, yeah.
I think I would. Agree with that. But I'm glad that I played Edith Finch first, personally. But if I were just to walk up to Joe Schmo on the street, oh, you play games? Yeah, I play games. You like walking sims? I never played one. I'd like to. What do you think I should play? You should play Firewatch. Like, I don't know anything about this person. I'm going to go, you should probably play Firewatch. Then, if you liked it, play play Edith Finch, what Remains of Edith Finch. Like, then do your own thing. But, yeah, just Joe Schmo on the street, I think, Firewatch. You should go Firewatch.
Yeah. I'll retract my statement, because my answer was Firewatch until just a moment ago. You're right. I still think for the general player, there's things that are more generally interesting in The Suicide of Rachel Foster.
Sure.
But you are right. Those shortcomings are pretty big. And if you already maybe have an aversion to the genre for whatever reason, that's not going to sell you on the genre.
Sure. And whereas Firewatch, despite anything that you think about walking sims, you will stay for how well written and for that story, which is already the biggest draw of most walking sims is that story. So that'd be my argument. Writing has so much to do with walking sims more, and this kind of leads into our next topic. Why is it so different and so unwieldy? And for a lot of trying to cram it into fitting in with the rest of video games, it's difficult. But for me, what I find interesting about it is whenever you talk to someone or you're reading a review about it, the strength of the game is almost exclusively, that was a good story, that was well written, that made me feel this way because of the way the story was told to me, right? Those are the things that are checking boxes for people in walking sims. I think that's the core of what a walking sim is still, despite Firewatch has a lot more gameplay moments in it, at least comparatively, right?
Yeah,
comparatively, I want to say, because
I think to all of these, with the exception of Edith Finch, it's definitely the most gamey.
Yeah, with the exception of Edith Finch for sure, and even then, it's not very gamey at all. What I do appreciate though is that you have this genre that is going to click for a lot of people that maybe don't like playing games even, or don't like a lot of games. There's this genre that is extremely story driven, and more games are pushing the story envelope. More and more games are being story driven, especially over the past 5-10 years, really going for that more and putting more effort and time into that. But in this case, you have a genre that is, when you pick up a walking sim, you're going to get someone who's trying to tell you an interesting and a good story pretty much every time.
Yeah.
And, with something like Edith Finch, even something like the Stanley Parable, there are people doing extremely interesting things with it and telling stories in different ways that you maybe haven't done before, or stories that click differently because I am this player. I am this player. I am this player. When you go into something thinking that and feeling that, you will leave with a different emotional resonance.
Yeah, and I mean, there's two. We've agreed on most of these, but the first two we were completely opposite on. I enjoyed the experience of Dear Esther. I'm glad that I finally got around to playing that, but I think you had a much stronger. You have a much more positive take on that, and the opposite for Gone Home. I loved Gone Home. I was thinking about it for a couple days afterward. I'd like to play it again, and yeah, I thought it was incredible.
I think and it's cool that different stories can interact with you, impact you in different ways, and I like them a lot. I will say that I am now someone who likes to play walking sims.
Yep.
Maybe not a fan of the genre in particular, but just in general.
I don't know. It sounds like you are.
Like no, I mean like in terms of like these are my favorite game genres. Like I don't think I'd put it on that list. Like
sure.
But I would say that it's a genre that I play, that I will look for, if something looks interesting to me, I'm definitely in. I'm going to check it out. It hits a couple buttons that other things just don't. And regardless of whether you think it's a game or not, I don't think that's important. It's an interesting experience, and
definitely
creators are delivering something interesting with it.
Now, there's been a couple glaring omissions here. We still got a little more to talk about, but a couple glaring omissions. We've got Tacoma. That was the follow-up to Gone Home. Fulbright's follow-up there. That. We didn't play Machine of Pigs, Amnesia Machine of Pigs. Yep. That's the follow-up to Dear Esther. Let's see. We had another one from them. Everyone's Gone to the Rapture.
Yep, we didn't play that one.
Which maybe we should have put that on here instead of Virginia, I think. But we put all of these on here for a specific reason.
Yeah.
There are a few ones that we had to hit, and then some that we were personally interested in. Abzu for Zack, the Vanishing of Ethan Carter for me, and the one we shall not mention, Fatale. I mean, I've mentioned it, but we're not going to talk about it. If you want to go check out Fatale, do that. It's like $6 on Steam. It's a thing that does exist, and you can spend money on it. It exists. So yeah, a few glaring omissions, but we can only play so many games.
Yeah,
and I think
we'll get to them. I mean, I've added a couple of them to my list, and I'm excited to visit them when I have time.
I'm far more interested in Tacoma now. I thought maybe it looked a little boring. It didn't have the cultural relevance of Gone Home. So I wasn't particularly interested in it. But now that I've actually played Gone Home, and that's a very capable team, I'm certainly more interested in it. I don't know when I'll get around to it.
You will eventually.
It's 2.5 hours, so if I got 2.5 hours and I'm not playing anything, maybe I'll give it a go.
Sure.
But the main ones on here, we've got Dear Esther, Gone Home, Stanley Parable, Firewatch, Virginia, and The Suicide of Rachel Foster. Those were all on here.
Finch from last time.
For very specific reasons. I think, with the exception of Virginia, all of those are a very clear trajectory of the sort of the pillars of this genre,
and with indicative of where it's going to go. I think.
Virginia, I just thought the camera work
a little bit more experimental, maybe.
Yeah, that's why I put it on that like must play list. But unfortunately, just some things came up. We couldn't get around to all of them.
Yeah.
The only reason Suicide of Rachel Foster is there is because it hasn't had a chance to make that name. It is the current, big budget title of this genre. It came out earlier this year. People are going to be talking about it, and it should be there.
Yeah.
So let's see here. You're moving things and squeaking rubber. Sorry to bump my mic. So one more topic, Zach.
Take it away. One more.
Take it away, man.
Take it away. Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about other Other genres.
Oh man, I thought we were gonna. We had one more thing to talk about here with walking sims and.
Oh, I kind of felt. I don't know. I felt like that was a nice ending point. But no, go ahead if you got something more to say. Go
No, you're right. It was a nice ending point. So we'll go ahead and leave it at that. We'll leave it at that, and we'll move on. And I think that this talking about walking sims and discovering them together is a pretty nice segue into talking about genres that we have really been avoiding for any given reason, or just generally averse
not
to.
Interested. And like it just hasn't ever been that. It's like the first time you watch that trailer for, Assassin's Creed when you're a kid, or something like, I want that thing. You know what I mean? These are maybe the genres where I've never said I want that thing, or the ones that I've just avoided for, one external reason or another.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there are just a couple, because walking sims were that for me for a while. I was like, why do I want to play a game where I just walk around and let a story happen to me? Like I can just go read a good book, So yeah, I think so. What's one for you, Tyler?
For me, it's JRPGs.
I'm so sorry.
That is.
I love JRPGs.
Number 2, but you're gonna mention my number 1, and I want to talk about these other ones.
Yeah, for sure.
So JRPGs, I'm a very slow reader. I fall asleep pretty easy. When I'm not directly engaged, I might start to drift off, or just start. It might be hard for me to really focus on reading. There's a lot of that in JRPGs, but also I don't have time for JRPGs.
They're long, man.
I want to play Persona 5 so bad. No one has time for that.
Yeah.
If I can get 10 hours is a long game for me, okay? But if I can get a 10-hour JRPG, that would be magical.
We should do a Persona 5 month where we just go through.
It's like half of the year.
Yeah.
If we're really like making time for it, we can finish it, sure. But
I'm dying to play it. That's on my list. I still haven't played Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross. There's a bunch that are just I haven't played. But in general, when I was a kid, Mega Man Battle Network 3 specifically, Kingdom Hearts I really liked. As I got older, Final Fantasy 4.
Well, those are long, but Kingdom Hearts is an action game. I'm thinking of...
Sure, it's an action... I would argue, though, it's very rooted in Japanese RPG. You can go say tropes, but just staples of the genre. And it's definitely JRPG in all of its presentation and everything else. Sure, but it's an action JRPG.
Certainly in its presentation.
Like, if you won't call that a JRPG, then Final Fantasy VII Remake is not a JRPG.
Right? Yeah, I probably wouldn't call it a JRPG.
I would still call it one. It's just an action JRPG. But
sure. So if we give it that...
So you're talking about like turn-based JRPGs.
I'm talking about turn-based JRPGs.
All right, yeah, for me, I didn't play those till I got a little older. Well, I did play some when I was younger, Golden Sun, that kind of stuff, and I liked them. Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, really liked a lot when I was younger. But as I grew up, I played Final Fantasy IV, Final Fantasy VII. Those games. I really liked the Final Fantasy games. That style that was born out of Dragon Quest. Yeah. I like those games, and I find them engaging. I don't know why I enjoy them so much, but I haven't even played the titans of the genre necessarily, but I love the time they spend throughout the game where you really get to feel the weight of some of the things that happen in them, both in story in terms of gameplay and your growth and progression and the way that you're interacting on the battlefield. And I loved, for example, Final Fantasy VII, the original. I'm at this boss. It's the infamous boss. It's stronger than Sephiroth could ever be. It's just a crane that moves things around. It's so difficult to kill. And I just couldn't do it. I kept dying over and over and over again. And so I go back. I don't even grind. I just reslot my materia. I think about it for a little bit. I realize how good magic actually is and how much you can spam it and start to identify how to really exploit that. I shuffle around my party. I start thinking about the game more in depth and realizing how much you can really play with those systems. And you get to go, you know what, Barrett, you've been good to me, but you got to be my cure mage right now. You got to be my white mage boy. Let's do this because I need to focus attack on these guys. And shuffling that around and just enjoying your time, either with the characters or with the systems. I have a good time.
Yeah. So that's not to say I have never played a JRPG. One of my all-time favorite games is Chrono Cross.
Sure.
I played it again recently. I think I've played through it 3 or 4 times. I think Chrono Cross is incredible. I've played Final Fantasy 1 through 4. Let's see. I don't know. I maybe have played a few others. Played a handful of JRPGs is the point. There's one that has, aside from what we just mentioned, Persona 5, there's one that has always just really been on my mind because I played about maybe 2 hours of it.
Same
quite
here,
some
actually.
time ago, but it was the story and reading that just turned me off to it because there's so much of it, and I want to get to that gameplay. But Radiant Historia,
which I always mix up with Bravely Default for some reason.
Oh,
I don't know why.
I don't know much about Bravely Default.
Me neither, but Radiant Historia is the one that I'm also extremely interested in. I played, I think, 2-3 hours of it. I just ran out of time. I was playing it and shuffling through a couple games on DS trying to find out which one clicked for me, and then I picked up Fire Emblem Awakening and played the whole game twice because...
Really?
Fire Emblem Awakening.
Now, see, that's a little different for me. Someone may argue that should be considered a JRPG as well.
Maybe, but it's definitely a strategy.
I wouldn't put it there. That's, or at least if it is in that genre, that's not the kind of game I'm talking about. Because I love that game.
I think it's really
I want to play many more of those games.
Yeah, they're good.
So yeah, that's not what I'm talking about here. But Radiant Historia, what really gets me is that combat.
The grid.
Yeah, so it's a 3x3 grid, and the enemies will be placed in there maybe randomly. I don't know, but all of your attacks move your enemy in some direction. Or maybe there are some that don't, but you'll push the enemy back. You might swipe and push the enemy to the left. Or
and you
whatever.
Want to maximize damage by putting them in the right spots for your finishing, whatever you want to really do damage with.
Part of the screen, and this is really one of the things that the DS does great, is allow for the extra UI. So somewhere on one of those screens, it shows you the turn order, but it shows you like 15 turns in advance, and you can skip your turns. So, you're going to be taking damage. It's dangerous because once you skip a turn, you can't get it back.
Yeah.
And so you're going to go down to the... I don't know if you go down a certain number or just go down to the bottom of the turn order. But you can stack up huge combos. So, these characters might have 3 or 4 turns back to back based on how much you're willing to press your luck and allow their turns to get lumped up in that turn order. And then once you do, you're using a character to swipe left, push back, and you can bunch up the enemies. So let's say that the grid is full, and you push an enemy back into another square, which then, if it's a strong enough attack, pushes it back into the last square in the column. And so now you've got 3 enemies in that, and then you can pull them all left to get them stacked with some other enemies, and then do some huge finisher that might either hit it might be an AoE or something, or just come straight down.
Spot,
and it's a really satisfying puzzle.
Cool.
The give and take, that push your luck element. It's awesome. And that excitement came from playing 2 hours of it 5 years ago. I have not forgotten about it. I don't know why I have not played it, but it seems so interesting. All right, what you got, dude?
Okay, so since it's going to be my number one, and I think it's your number one as
I don't know why I forgot to put it on here.
Dating sims.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh,
no.
Okay. For me, dating sims, man, it's really hard.
That's on my list.
That's my
dating
number
sims
one.
and visual novels. I put that on there as well.
That's fair. For me, it has nothing to do with a lot of the stigma that goes with a lot of those games. For me, man, it's just I'll just go read a book again. But this is even more so because it is just kind of a visual novel, and it just hasn't interested me before. The one that has though. Dream Daddy. That
it's
looks
so silly,
so fun, so engaging. Like I've already picked my boo in that game. He's got the dad gut.
The dude that's basically from Firewatch.
Yeah, he gets me. He understands
most
me.
definitely.
I don't know him yet, but I know he does. So
for sure.
And for me, a lot of it, and so many times in life, just when I'm willing to try something new or try a new genre or try something different, what helps me is just getting excited about it, finding a way to enjoy it. There's an example. What is that game we played with my family? A tabletop game.
With the furries.
Yeah.
We are talking about Good Critters.
Good Critters, and so this is a game, tabletop game, and you know, it's themed as, you know, you're kind of these very anthropomorphic animals.
They're furries. They are furries.
Yeah, sure, okay. And
the fox.
Just
it's furries, okay? It's furries.
We're moving on, and for me, what's interesting is they're all themed as gangsters.
Yeah.
You know, these mobsters, and very Al Capone kind of, you know, style mobsters or hit rabbits or whatever. And, you know, I was like, I don't want to play this game. Like, fine, I'll play this game with you guys. And so immediately, the first thing I do is go, hey, come on, Tuesdays, what you doing? You can't come up against Knuckles. Like, and I just went all in. Just role played the character.
Yeah,
and
it's super fun. We've played twice now. You only played once, but we played last week as well. And it's so much fun when the entire table is
really getting
super
into
engaged.
You're good to the boss is good to you. You know, it just stuff like that that's so silly and so fun. But because I was willing to put the energy and effort into it, if it ended up sucking, I know it would be just because that thing sucks. Mm-hmm. Or because it's just not for me, right? If I don't put that in and I don't enjoy it, it could be my fault. In fact, in the past, I've revisited Blade Runner is a great example. I did not like the first Blade Runner when I saw it, but I went back and revisited it. I put the time in, and I really paid attention to what was going on, and you catch all those subtleties that the story is told of the subtleties in Blade Runner. So those kind of things. So when I visit dating sim, I know it has to be when I'm ready to really invest and get into it and enjoy the experience to the best of my ability.
Yeah, you really just got to let yourself go to it. And it's also on my list. Now, I've never not been interested, in dating sims or visual novels. But, you know, I've already sort of explained my aversion to those because it's similar to the reason I'm so averse to JRPGs. There's so much reading involved, which is fine. That's not to say it's bad, but for me, I'm just such a slow reader, and you know,
I'm not.
there's a lack of engagement there if I am not able to keep up. You know, the pacing of the game just plummets if you're not able to keep up with that, or at least that's what I'm anticipating. But I've always been interested in it, and so those genres, because I added
which ones have kind of interested you?
Not dating sims. Dream Daddy is certainly funny. That's high on the list. But Doki Doki Literature Club, I don't know what that twist is, but I heard someone, this is on the co-optional podcast when Literature Club came out. I sort of skipped ahead because they said something interesting about it that was like, okay, this is going to be the one. And so I skipped ahead. So I don't know what the twist is, what exactly is going on, but that's the one I want to try. And then for visual novels, there's something that came out just a little while ago called Across the Groove.
Yeah.
And this girl finds a magical record in a record shop, and the previous owner's lives are like embedded in the record, and so she can play it and visit that history. I think. I don't know exactly, but it looks interesting. It's very well presented. It's got an original album there, like what is the one we talked about at the beginning? Sayonara Wild Hearts. There's music written for this game, not just a soundtrack, but like a full album written for this game, and it seems to be very well presented. The art is solid, and the story is probably something that I could become invested with. So if something is going to get me into visual novels, it's likely going to be that one.
That's totally fair. I've kind of knocked off 2 for you already, so I'll go again.
Yeah.
City builders, city simulators, that kind of stuff. I played Zoo Tycoon as a kid, exclusively to release animals to devour with my yes, because I mean, that's the only real goal of that game. There's no actual park building involved. But yeah, I was young, and it was just to have fun. But the genre itself, like, you have to be very self-motivated. Like, the goal of that game and the reward of that game, seeing that fully constructed, self-sustaining environment, that has to be a reward for you. And for me, I'm not the guy that likes to build those things to have that clean house where everything is perfect and it just runs and it's efficient. You know, I'm not an engineer in that sense. I'm an IT engineer where it's like, it's broke, we gotta fix it. You know, I'm that kind of guy. So that being said, The first Evil Genius game.
I knew you were going to mention Evil Genius, and if you didn't, I was going to mention it for you.
Yeah, that's the one where the theme is engaging. It's fun. It's silly. I would obviously roleplay. I know that you kind of have your Evil Genius, but I would still roleplay as Megamind because obviously,
yeah, for sure.
everything would be custom baby seal leather. But because that idea is engaging to me, that would be the one. For sure, that could get me into the genre.
But also, the reason I was going to bring it up if you didn't is that, correct me if I'm wrong, is the not city building, but like the base building aspect of it similar to the second one, where the minions do it for you?
From my understanding, yes. Okay. I have not really looked into either very deeply, to be honest.
So in this game, it looks like a lot of the micromanaging is alleviated because you have a master plan and your minions just go do it for you. They maximize where the furniture is going to be placed, how this engine connects to the other one on the other side of the
See, that sounds great. Base. That sounds right up my alley.
Yeah, that's why I was going to mention it for you.
Peons are essential to all
correct
masterminding.
Yeah. So lastly for me, that's a good one. Lastly for me, it's RTSs. I've played a single RTS in my life.
Which game?
Rise of Legends. And
wow.
I thought it was pretty interesting. Or wait, let's see. Is something Age of Mythology an RTS or a turn-based?
Yeah, that's I don't know. I wouldn't go so far as to call it an RTS, but it has RTS elements in it.
Okay, I also played that, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. I played it as a kid. I remember I played it on a road trip, and playing on this dinky little laptop in the car.
Beautiful.
So I put a blanket over my head so I could not have the glare on the screen.
Wow.
And I made a little cave.
That's amazing.
So they're just...
About them? Yeah. Because they're one of my... Growing up especially, I loved RTSs.
Really? They just seem to require so much of the player to be good. And I'm not going to expect a good story out of any of them.
I'm not good at RTSs.
Really?
I'm trash, and yet I have a lot of fun. Like, I played Northgard with Josh. Josh, one of our founding members, and he's incredibly good at RTSs. And I just feel so stupid every time I play against him. I have sworn more at Josh Lee, who is one of the nicest people who's ever lived, than I have probably at anybody else in my life, because he just crushes me beneath his Norse boot heel. And
that's the thing.
So
it requires
good.
so much. And growing up, I didn't have many friends to play video games with. The friends I did have largely used me because I had cool video games. Just ditched me after that. Really, just a sob story here.
Sad.
So I didn't play. What were the Lord of the Rings ones?
Okay, that's what I was gonna say. You should play Battle for Middle Earth with us. Like,
sure. I didn't have a little brother laying on the floor over there doing camera stuff.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Nick and I have collectively, like, not even collectively, just individually, each of us have put hundreds of hours into Battle for Middle Earth, and we're still trash. We're still so bad at the game because it's just fun. Like, we just enjoy doing it. It's definitely in the middle, maybe even low middle of complexity, in terms of an RTS game, and it's still got a really cool community that's supporting it, with their own servers and stuff, and they do a really good job maintaining it. Both Battle for Middle Earth 1 and 2 are incredibly different games. Both have their own merits and weaknesses. I play both all the time. Like, I just always have them on my like downloaded, and Nick and I will just sometimes boot it up and go, hey, you want to play 1 or 2? And I was like, I feel like 1 today, because they're very different. So
all right, well, then I'll replace StarCraft on this list with,
because that's complicated.
That.
That's like
really
clicks per second kind of stuff, man.
Yeah. So
I guess it's just me, right?
No,
it's just me, right? MMOs.
Oh, that's right.
MMOs are my is the game that those kind of games that I just. This is one that I'm not interested in them. It's the time.
Oh, really? For me, I'm just not interested in them.
Like,
I've tried. I played Final Fantasy 14 last year.
Never tried any of them.
Really?
Not one ever. And it has nothing to do with the quality, my interest in them. Final Fantasy 14 would be the one I would play. I love the story behind that game. Not like the story of the game, the story about like the rise,
development,
the fall rise of that game.
You like the you like the no clip videos.
Yeah, the no clip videos are fantastic.
Yeah.
They're so well. No clip's fantastic.
Correct.
Danny, you're beautiful. And but seriously, I love the story of that game, and so that's to be the one. And it just looks cool. It looks great. But for me, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I don't want to like them, if that makes sense. Like, I don't want to be the guy
gonna be a huge time sink.
Picks another MMO when he's done putting 1,000 hours into one. And it's not because I think the people do that are bad. It's not because I think that's a waste of time. It's just I know what I want to do with my time, and I just want to do that with my time. And you know what I mean?
You know, people who spend thousands of hours in those games, they have oftentimes, everyone that I've spoken to that does, you know, really or seemingly lasting relationships there.
Absolutely.
Like, really invested in the communities there. So it seems great. This has been a pretty common theme. I don't have the time to invest. That does require a lot of the player for it to be satisfying.
Yep.
And I've tried World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy 14, Final Fantasy 11. I've tried. I feel like I tried Elder Scrolls. No, I tried the beta. I've played a few like Japanese or maybe Chinese games earlier on in my life, and so I've tried to jump into MMOs several times, and the most recent being Final Fantasy. I think a year and a half ago, I was like, it's free. There was like I think it was like a month or something for free, and so I was like, now's the time. If I'm going to like an MMO, this is going to be the defining moment, and I don't.
Okay.
Not to say they're bad. I think people should really get better at differentiating what they like and what is bad. Because you might not like Gone Home or Walking Sims in general. That wasn't directed at you. I'm sorry. That's just because I played the other ones that are really solid. Like, that's the one that stuck out for me. That was new to me. But the point is, like, you might not like walking simulators, but don't call Firewatch bad. You do not know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So to be able to know, I don't know what I'm talking about enough to not be able to say an MMO is bad.
Yeah.
I just don't like them. I just don't like them, unfortunately.
So, no, that's totally fair. I get it. I'm on kind of the opposite side of the boat. I haven't tried them yet. I will eventually, but yeah.
Well, that's it. That's what we got for you. Thank you so much for listening. That was episode 2. And now, I didn't mention this in the beginning, but during the beginning episodes, we're sort of working out the camera angle here. I think we're going to settle on this one, but this is being recorded out of order, so next episode is also going to look different. We'll get there. We'll definitely get there.
Yeah.
Thanks for sticking around, and why don't you go ahead and sign us out, man?
Yeah, so remember, we mentioned at the end of the, right before the break, $2 on our Patreon, get you into our Discord server. We're going to have a lot of good stuff going on there. We got photo mode, groups, we have a bunch of, monthly playthroughs we're going to try to be doing, so help us build out that community. That'd be awesome. Otherwise, make sure you follow us on Twitter, where all our updates are going to come from. If you're watching us on YouTube, we also do podcast stuff, pretty much every normal podcast platform. You listen to us on a podcast, check us out on YouTube. We got those videos, shorter clips of some of the more overarching segments, and maybe just really short stuff that just turned out really well. So make sure to do that, and we will see you next time.
Thanks a lot.